Chapter 22. When I reached the trees, I broke into a sprint, Seth following closely on my heels. I needed to get away. Whatever Bella was planning on telling Jacob, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't think my heart could take it. I ran until I was certain I could no longer hear their voices or Jacob's thoughts. When the only sound remaining was Seth's steady heartbeat and soft panting, I stopped. I gripped the tree in front of me, leaning my head against the moss-covered bark. "Are you okay?" Seth thought. I turned to face him and nodded. "Just worried." I lowered myself to the ground, wrapping my arms around my knees and facing Seth. "So what do you know?" "The psychic, Alice, said the Volturi are coming." "What's a Volturi?" "They're vampires, old and ancient. They enforce the laws that keep our kind a secret from the humans." "And why are they coming here?" "I'm not sure exactly." I shook my head. "But if I had to guess, I think they're coming here to make sure our promise was kept, to see if Bella is still human." "Right, Jacob mentioned something about that. When Bella went to Italy?" I nodded. "Did Alice say when they would arrive?" "Not exactly. She saw them arriving shortly after the battle." I lowered my head into my hands. Of all the times for the Volturi to plan a visit, they had to choose today. It wasn't enough that an army of newborns was coming after Bella, and Jacob was on the verge of stealing her heart. The Volturi wanted their piece of her too. "Did she say what we should do?" "She said she can't see what they'll decide, but you shouldn't try to hide Bella. Their intentions are unclear, but if you run, it will raise suspicion. You need to bring her to the clearing after the battle is over. Please tell Sam to signal us when it's safe, and then we'll make our way to the clearing." Seth nodded his head, relaying the message to Sam. I turned my head to the side, staring off into the forest. I tried to imagine what Bella would say to Jacob. She seemed so distraught, verging on hysterical, that I couldn't help but wonder if she had finally realized her mistake in choosing me. What other reason could there be? Why did she so desperately need to speak to him? Would she deny the engagement to appease him? Would she call off the engagement? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring, holding it up to my face. For the briefest moment, I wanted to clamp my fingers around it, crush the symbol into an unrecognizable lump. If Bella wouldn't wear it, what did it matter? I clutched my fingers around it and pressed it to my heart, squeezing my eyes shut. The tremors in my stomach rolled through me, and I started to have trouble breathing. My hands trembled and I began to rock back and forth, a small whimper escaping my lips. "Are you okay?" Seth thought. I raised my eyes and nodded lightly, unclenching my fist, showing the ring to Seth. "Oh, that's the... If you proposed, why isn't she wearing it?" "I've been struggling not to ask that same question," I muttered. "Sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's fine." I waved him off. I shoved the ring back into my pocket and got to my feet. I didn't know how long Bella intended to speak to Jacob, but I wanted to allow her the time she needed before I returned. I began pacing, trying to find something to occupy my mind until I could return to her. My thoughts were a jumbled mess, in desperate need of some organization. I rubbed my temples and struggled to make sense of it all. Taking a deep breath, I tried to focus on one thing. I began replaying our conversation from this morning over in my mind. She wanted to know what I considered my 10 best nights, although I was much more interested in hers. Some of hers happened to coincide with mine, but what else could hers be? Mine certainly all revolved around some aspect of Bella, but what if hers didn't? What if some of her best nights didn't include me at all? What if they included Jacob instead? I shook my head, refusing to allow myself to dwell on Jacob. Instead, I began replaying my own favorite nights in my head, smiling slightly at the memories. Second only to the night when Bella accepted my proposal was the night Bella wouldn't remember. That first night I snuck into her room, feeling dreadful for spying on the girl I was so inexplicably enamored of. Something about her intrigued me, and I couldn't look away. And then it happened. She said my name in her sleep. Of all the possibilities, I had never considered that she would think of me as anything more than a monster. But in that moment, she was dreaming about me, asking me to stay. It was in that moment when living stone transformed, when the rare but permanent change took hold of me, and in that moment, I knew I would love her for the rest of my existence. And just the other night, like any other night when Bella slept in my arms, I was privy to the thoughts of her father. I had been waiting to share the events of that night with Bella, waiting for the right moment. But Bella took for granted the fact that her father has a keen sense of observation. Perhaps it was because Charlie made a concerted effort to appear oblivious that Bella never grasped exactly how astute her father really was. Charlie saw a lot of himself in Bella, her capacity to love, her steadfastness, her fierce loyalty. He thought about her relationship with me, and although there was something not quite right about me that he couldn't place his finger on, he was willing to accept me if I made her happy. His thoughts turned to the future, seeing the possibility that Bella may marry me. The thought saddened him, as it would any other father who would be losing his little girl. But it also gave him a sense of hope that Bella wouldn't make the same mistakes that he and Renee had made, that Bella's marriage would blossom where theirs had failed. The other nights filtered through my mind, endless possibilities, as nearly every night was better than the last. It was difficult to narrow so many moments of perfection down to merely 10. The memories played out, making my smile grow wider. Taking Bella to the prom and dancing effortlessly through the night. The reaction I received from Bella when I had returned from hunting after Alice had held her hostage. The hope I felt the night before Bella's fateful birthday. There were just too many moments to choose from, too many precious memories. I closed my eyes, using the memories of our love to comfort me, while the other half of my brain warned me that those remembrances may be all that I had left. Time to go back. Bella, Jacob, newborns. Have to go back. Seth's whine broke through my reverie, and I raised my eyes to look at him. His eyes were closed, and his mind was clouded, as though there were a battle waging between his own consciousness and that of the pack mind. He was trying to concentrate, to hide something. I focused my eyes on him, watching for his resolve to break. "Seth?" I whispered. His head snapped up, breaking his concentration, and I felt the air leave my lungs as I saw exactly what he'd been trying to hide. They were Jacob's thoughts, Jacob's memories. A shudder of panic rippled through me, and I staggered back, clutching my fist to my chest. No! She loved him. She asked him to. No! My knees began to shake until they gave out, sending me crashing to the ground. My hands balled up into fists, clenched so tightly that I could hear the cracking sound as tiny fissures broke out over the strained knuckles. She had begged him not to go, asked him to kiss her, hoping that would make him stay. And then I could feel the venom rising in my throat, a wave of nausea rolling over me. Jacob was replaying the memory in disturbing detail, the feel of her overheated skin as he caressed her face and arms, the feel of her lips on his, her resistance that slowly yielded to passion. She had never once kissed me with such abandon. It was reckless and fervent as she pressed her lips to his and gripped his hair, pulling him closer to her. The smug triumph in Jacob's thoughts caused another wave of nausea to crash over me. He thought he had won. He had successfully persuaded Bella to realize the love she felt for him, and believed that she would choose him. Would she? Perhaps I was overreacting again. I had known for quite some time that Bella's feelings for Jacob ran deep. With the impending fight, and tensions running high, maybe Jacob was reading more into it than was really there. It was possible that Bella was acting not out of love, but in an effort to persuade Jacob to stay, to keep him out of the fight, and she saw no other option than to kiss him. I grasped onto that tiny glimmer of hope with all that I had. We should get back, Seth thought. I squeezed my eyes tightly before opening them to look up at Seth. I brought my hand up to my face, running my tongue along the fractures and watching them fuse back together. I brushed off my pants as I stood, turning to Seth. "All right," I nodded. "Let's go." We began walking back to camp, more slowly than necessary, but Seth didn't complain about the pace. I didn't know if I was ready to face her, to hear her side of what I had seen in Jacob's thoughts. Would she pretend it hadn't happened, shield me from the truth, hoping that I hadn't already discovered it? Would she make excuses, plead her case? Would she really choose Jacob? Could I be walking straight into a disaster? "Sorry," Seth whined. "Jacob, knock it off. We don't want to hear about it." I waved him off. He certainly had done nothing wrong. In fact, he had done me a great service, alerting me to what had happened. I would hate to think of walking into the situation completely blind. If I wanted to win Bella over, maintaining my hold on her heart, then information was my only ally. The tent came into view as we cleared the trees. Bella and Jacob were nowhere to be seen, but I could feel Bella's presence. Her scent lingered in the air, and her unsteady heartbeat emanated from within the tent. Jacob's thoughts continued to scream at me. No doubt he was doing it purposely, knowing I would see. The pack bickered among themselves, yelling at Jacob to focus on the fight. I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve, and took a determined step toward the tent. I pulled back the fabric, obscuring the opening, and my heart broke as I saw Bella lying face down on the sleeping bag. Her head was in her hands, and she was whimpering softly. I stepped lightly into the tent, kneeling down beside her. She was either completely unaware of my presence or unwilling to face me. I hoped for my sake it was the former. I closed my eyes, breathing in her scent, struggling to maintain my composure. I couldn't allow myself to fall apart. I reached out to her with a trembling hand, hesitating as my fingers hovered inches above her head. Slowly I lowered my hand, reaching down to stroke her hair, feeling the strands flow through my fingers. She shuddered at my touch. "Are you all right?" I whispered, my voice cracking under the strain of my emotions. "No," she muttered. "I want to die." "Never. That will never happen. I won't allow it." "You might change your mind about that," she groaned. Was she afraid that I would be sore with her? Did she expect me to yell and scream and demand an explanation? "Where's Jacob?" I asked. I knew full well he was preparing for the fight, en route to the battlefield, but a part of me expected him to stay just long enough to gloat, so he could see firsthand the expression on my face. His absence was almost startling, not to mention my irritation that he had left her completely alone. "He went to fight," she replied, a sadness in her tone that only served to worry me further. How could I respond to her? What could I say? I replayed the scene in my mind, every excruciating detail of Jacob's conversation with Bella, and it struck me. Perhaps all was not lost. Jacob's motives were not entirely pure. He had every intention of kissing her, with or without her consent. Certainly he believed that he loved her, but he was also manipulating her, using her good-hearted nature against her, in essence tricking her into kissing him. "Oh," I murmured. She turned her head slightly, her moistened, red eyes meeting mine. I tried to hold her gaze, but found it difficult to look her in the eyes and maintain my composure. I took several deep breaths, finding the right words, deciding how to convince her that Jacob had deceived her. She lowered her head back to the floor. I pursed my lips, deciding that my best approach would be to appear nonchalant, even amused. Even I was surprised at the light laugh that escaped my lips. "And I thought I fought dirty," I muttered. "He makes me look like the patron saint of ethics." She pressed her face further into the down of the sleeping bag, and I reached down to caress her cheek lightly. "I'm not mad at you, love. Jacob's more cunning than I gave him credit for. I do wish you hadn't asked him, though." "Edward," she whimpered. I'm... "Shh," I whispered as I continued to stroke her cheek. "That's not what I meant. It's just that he would have kissed you anyway, even if you hadn't fallen for it. And now, I don't have the excuse to break his face. I would have really enjoyed that, too. Fallen for it? She questioned. Bella, did you really think he was that noble? That he would go out in a flame of glory just to clear the way for me? She lifted her gaze to mine, a puzzled expression on her face. Bella was a trusting soul, taking nearly everyone's word at face value. Yes, I did believe that, she whispered, seemingly ashamed. The blush rose in her cheeks, and she looked away. You're such a bad liar. You'll believe anyone who has the least bit of skill, I chuckled. Her eyes narrowed. Why aren't you angry with me? Why don't you hate me? Or haven't you heard the whole story yet? I think I got a fairly comprehensive look. Jacob makes vivid mental pictures. I almost feel as bad for his pack as I do for myself. Poor Seth was getting nauseated. But Sam is making him focus now. She closed her eyes and shook her head, a small tear trailing down her cheek. She reached up, wiping it away. You're only human, I whispered. She made a face. That's the most miserable defense I've ever heard. But you are human, Bella, and as much as I might wish otherwise, so is he. There are holes in your life that I can't fill. I understand that. There were so many things I couldn't give her. I couldn't grow old with her, couldn't kiss her with as much passion as she deserved, couldn't give her children. But that's not true, she argued. That's what makes me so horrible. There are no holes. But there were. You love him, I whispered, wishing all the while that that wasn't true, but I couldn't deny it any longer. I love you more, she whispered. It was as much of an admission as I could expect, but I felt some consolation knowing that she still loved me more than she loved him. Yes, I know that too. But when I left you, Bella, I left you bleeding. Jacob was the one to stitch you back up again. That was bound to leave its mark, on both of you. I'm not sure those kind of stitches dissolve on their own. I can't blame either of you for something I made necessary. I may gain forgiveness, but that doesn't let me escape from the consequences. The truth of the words pressed down upon me, the weight of them almost too much to bear. I had known it was true since the moment we returned from Volturre. She loved him, and that was entirely my fault. I imagined that if I had never come into her life, her path naturally would have intersected with Jacob's, and her future would be quite different than the one that laid before her now. I should have known you would try to blame yourself, she grumbled. Please stop, I can't stand it. What would you like me to say? I had only spoken the truth. It was undeniable that I played a very important role in uniting them. She leaned up on her elbow, her eyes narrowed. I want you to call me every bad name you can think of, in every language you know. I want you to tell me that you're disgusted with me, and that you're going to leave, so that I can beg and grovel on my knees for you to stay. I stared at her for a moment. I could never say anything like that to her. Why did she feel the need to be punished? I'm sorry, I shook my head. I can't do that. At least stop trying to make me feel better, she groaned. Let me suffer. I deserve it. No. She pursed her lips and furrowed her brow. You're right, she sighed. Keep on being too understanding. That's probably worse. I could never intentionally harm her. Didn't she understand that? I promised her that I would stay as long as she wanted me, and if she changed her mind, then that was her decision to make. I wouldn't force her hand. They're coming. I can smell them. Get ready. My thoughts were broken by the stream of commentary in Seth's mind. The newborns were almost here. The battle was about to begin. My body tensed, knowing that soon everyone in that field would be fighting for the fragile girl sitting before me. It's getting close, she murmured, sensing my increased anxiety. As much as I tried to conceal my worries from her, sometimes I felt as though she could read me like an open book. Perhaps I wasn't the only one to perfect the art of discerning another's mood. I nodded. Yes, A few more minutes now. Just enough time to say one more thing. Could I do it? Could I give her up? I could see in her eyes now, and through Jacob's memories, that she loved him. There was so much more he could offer her that I could not, and if she chose him, I would not begrudge her that. But the selfish side of me fought, screaming against the rational part of my brain that was preparing to admit defeat. But I wanted her to choose me because she loved me, not because of a lopsided sense of obligation. What good does it do to have the one you love with you if they can't love you in return, or if their love is torn between you and another? But it didn't matter what she chose. I would always belong to her, even if she didn't belong to me. I took a deep breath. I can be noble, Bella. I'm not going to make you choose between us. Just be happy, and you can have whatever part of me you want, or none at all, if that's better. Don't let any debt you feel you owe me influence your decision. Her eyes widened and her nostrils flared as she pushed herself up until she was kneeling in front of me. "Damn it, stop that!" she shouted. I was struck by the intensity of her words, by the fire behind her eyes. "No." I put up my hands defensively. "You don't understand. I'm not trying to make you feel better, Bella. I really mean it." And I did. Unlike Jacob, I was willing to put Bella's happiness above my own, and if he made her happy, then— "I know you do," she exhaled forcefully. "What happened to fighting back? Don't start with a noble self-sacrifice now. Fight!" She slapped her palm forcefully on my chest, her entire body quivering. She wanted me to fight. I had struggled so hard to suppress my jealous tendencies, to stop letting my emotions get the better of me, to accept Bella's decisions, that I honestly didn't know how to fight anymore. I had nearly lost her because I couldn't control my temper. Could I revert back to that so easily? "How?" I asked, feeling a dreaded sense of defeat. She pushed herself forward, wrapping her arms around me and climbing into my lap. "I don't care that it's cold here. I don't care that I stink like a dog right now. Make me forget how awful I am. Make me forget him. Make me forget my own name. Fight back." Was that what she longed for from me? The unhindered passion that Jacob had given her? Love unaccompanied by restraint? Before I could respond, she pressed her lips to mine, clutching my hair in her fingers and pulling my face to hers. Her lips were urgent, pleading as they molded to mine. But I couldn't give her what Jacob did. I couldn't put every ounce of love and devotion I had into a kiss, worship her from head to toe. I could not risk throwing caution to the wind and letting my emotions take over in the heat of the moment. It was far too dangerous. "Careful, love," I whispered against her lips. "No," she growled, pressing her lips more firmly to mine. This didn't feel right. She wasn't acting rationally. If she told me that she loved me, I would believe her. As much as I wanted her to be mine completely, it shouldn't be like this. I reached up, cupping her cheeks in my hands, but she misinterpreted, pressing her body more closely to mine. I gently pushed her back from me. "You don't have to prove anything to me." "I'm not trying to prove something," she cried. "You said I could have any part of you I wanted. I want this part. I want every part." She again began pulling herself to me, and I leaned in, my lips meeting hers. I kissed her, but it didn't appear to be enough for her. She pressed her lips more urgently to mine, her hands gripping my hair, my neck, my arms. I could feel her pushing against me, urging me to lay back and pull her with me. "The newborns have caught the scent. They're coming." I grasped Bella's wrist and pushed her back again. "Perhaps this isn't the best moment for that," I murmured. "Why not?" she protested, her bottom lip quivering, a look of defeat in her eyes. "Firstly, because it's cold." She would never admit it when she was trying to get close to me, but it was quite clear she was beginning to shiver. I wrapped the sleeping bag around her in an effort to keep her warm. She rolled her eyes. "Wrong. First, because you're bizarrely moral for a vampire." "All right," I chuckled. I'll give you that. The cold is second. And thirdly, well, you do actually stink, love. I wrinkled my nose and made a face in an attempt to lighten the moment. She shook her head. Fourthly, we will try, Bella. I'll make good on my promise. But I'd much rather it wasn't in reaction to Jacob Black. I wasn't able to see her eyes as she pressed her face into my shoulder. They're splitting up. Get ready. And fifthly, this is a very long list, she interrupted. Yes, I laughed. But did you want to listen to the fight or not? I should be down there, Seth howled. The tension was rolling off Bella in waves. Not the same emotional upheaval as with me or with Jacob, but concern over those who were fighting for her. The scent of blood hit my nose, and I reached for Bella's hands. Crimson crescent marks dotted the surface of her palm, and I laid my hand on hers, relieving the strain. It's going to be fine, Bella. We've got skill, training, and surprise on our side. It will be over very soon. If I didn't truly believe that, I would be down there now, and you would be here, chained to a tree, or something along those lines. Alice is so small. The thought of Alice being helpless made me laugh. She may look like the most fragile of my family members, but she was easily the most dangerous. That might be a problem, if it were possible for someone to catch her. I can't believe I'm here. I'm not too young, Seth whined. Bella's eyes widened. What's wrong? I shook my head. He's just angry that he's stuck here with us. He knows the pack kept him out of the action to protect him. He's salivating to join them. It's time. They're here. Let's go. The newborns have reached the end of the trail. It worked like a charm. Jasper's a genius. And they've caught the scent of the ones in the meadow, so they're splitting up into two groups now, as Alice said. Sam's taking us around to head off the ambush party. I could see everything through the eyes of the pack. Their thoughts were completely focused on the fight. For that I was thankful. I didn't think I could tolerate Jacob's snide remarks any longer. I glanced over at Bella, and she was trembling. Her chest wasn't moving as it should be. I grasped her hand. Breathe, Bella. Bella nodded weakly, and the steady sound of the air moving in and out of her lungs resumed. I clutched her hand reassuringly as I watched the fight. The sounds of the crushing boulders began to echo from the clearing. The fight had begun. I said a silent prayer for my family. The first group is in the clearing, I explained. We can hear the fighting. Everyone spread out. Remember what you've learned. Rosalie, watch out. I've got this one. Yeah, come on. That's what I'm talking about. I laughed and Bella shot a glare at me. We can hear Emmett, I explained. He's enjoying himself. There they are. Quiet. Maintain your position until I give the signal. The second group is getting ready. They aren't paying attention. They haven't heard us yet. The girl is mine. Her scent is so strong. No, I'm going to get her. I'll win the prize. Whatever you do, don't let her get away, Riley said. My teeth locked together, and a growl rumbled in my chest. The newborns, the same as in Alice's vision, the ones I saw with Bella's shirt. They were hunting her. Whoever created them specifically told them not to let Bella get away, told them that she was a prize to be won. Likely her blood was the prize. And who was this Riley? I scanned the faces of the newborns, but didn't recognize a single one. Was Riley in the group? Was he a member of the Volturi we didn't know about? Was he recruited by the Volturi? What? Bella gasped. They're talking about you, I hissed. They're supposed to be making sure you don't escape. Oh, no, you don't. Stop him. I watched as Leah lunged for a rogue newborn who seemed to pick up on our obscure trail, severing his head from his body with one powerful crush of her jaws. Nice move, Leah. She's quite fast. Bella looked at me with a puzzled expression. One of the newborns caught our scent, and Leah took him down before he could even turn, I explained. Sam's helping her finish him off. Paul and Jacob got another one, but the others are on the defensive now. They have no idea what to make of us. The newborns were beginning to falter. losing focus on their mission in favor of self-preservation. Both sides are fainting. This way, come on. Get back in line. No, let Sam lead. Stay out of the way. Separate them. Don't let them protect each other's backs. I watched as another 2 newborns were destroyed by the wolves, but it was clear that the majority of them had picked up on the real trail. The pack split, circling around and blocking the newborns' path, forcing them back. That's better. Drive them toward the clearing. The newborns began running to the fray, the wolves following close behind, herding them towards the fight in the clearing. Once through the trees, I was finally able to catch a glimpse of my family in action. Emmett was, of course, enjoying himself entirely too much, which only frustrated Rosalie. Carlyle and Esme seemed to be working as a team. Alice moved too fast to register with the eye, but Jasper still insisted on defending her, even to his own detriment. "Do you hear something?" I watched as Seth's eyes darted around him, looking for the source of the sound. His breathing stopped. I listened intently for any thoughts, praying that it was a deer or some other woodland creature that alerted Seth.
"They're here, I know it. I was right."
I froze in place. Someone had found us. No, not here. Seth's nostrils flared. The distinct scent of 2 vampires floated on the breeze. I recognized them both immediately. One was the vampire who had been in Bella's room, her mystery visitor. The other I would know anywhere, one I had tracked for weeks, Victoria.